So basically, I'm just wanting to ask you a few questions about running a business in China, and just about your experience, because you've lived there for quite a while now.
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was longer than that.
No, nine. Some days it feels longer.
So anyway, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Patrick Anton. I'm from the United States, from a farm in a state called Wisconsin. If you're wondering where that is, don't worry. Most people don't know. I've been in Xi'an for 9 years. In that time, I've worked in quite a few different places. In the final, right now, I have two offices. One is Belgian beer with Duvel, and one is the magazine, Xianease.
Excellent. So, in reference to coming, I mean, out of all the places in China, why did you come to Xi'an?
I did not come here to do business. Let me tell you, I should probably give you a precedent right now and say, I'm not a business guy. I did not come to Xi'an and be like, I see an opportunity. No. I actually came here as a backpacker with a friend of mine. They wanted to, two friends, they wanted to come to Xi'an. I had been to Xi'an as a traveler in 2004, and I hated it. I didn't like it. I came here for 2 days. It was terrible. And they convinced me to come back to Xi'an. And so I showed up to Xi'an with a backpack on my back and my two friends. We stayed for 3 days. And within those 72 hours, those 3 days, I fell in love with it. And though I did not stay, it's not like at that point I struck my pike and stayed. I traveled on for about 3 months. I ended up, just Xi'an was on my mind. And I just kept coming back. I mean, if you want to be cheesy about it, they say when you go to pick a pet, like a dog, you shouldn't choose one, you should let one choose you. And that's kind of how it felt with Xi'an, I guess, is that it's, I had no reason, no inclination, no want to stay here when I arrived, but by the end of those 3 days, I thought, I'd like to stay, at least for a while. 9 years again. I'm not like a revolutionary forward thinker. I meant 3 months, 6 months. And, 6 went to 1 year, 1 year went to 2, and then yada yada.
Right, and during that period, were you one of these people who was always like, I'm going to stay another year, then I'll have to move on, that kind of thing? Or have you just always thought about staying here as this, for example, do you now view this city as your home and where you belong?
All right. I mean, that's two different questions, I guess. The first thing is, like, when I was first here, did I think, all right, let's make the most of it? I did, but I never have put a time limit on my time here, nor did I say I have to stay here at a certain time, right? It's never, not since my first day did I think I was going to stay, right? If on my first year you said, look, you're going to be here 8 more years, I would have accepted it, but I would not have looked forward to it or thought negative of it. I just kept doing what I'm doing, and if I enjoy my time, then everything seems to be going all right. As of 9 years later, looking back, it's been a rocky road. It hasn't always been easy, but it has always been exactly what I want to do, I guess you could say. Yes. And do I feel like this is my home forever? No, I don't. I mean, look, I could be here 100 years, still walk down the street and be called Lawa, right? Yeah. So, I mean, there's always a division of me and Xi'an. There's always going to be a division. I mean, that's not something that can go away. Do I belong here for the rest of my life? I don't think so. When am I going to leave? I can't tell you that.
I mean, the majority of Chinese people, they are generally very friendly and courteous, but, I mean, still you always feel, are they being courteous to me because they're like that with everyone, or are they just doing it because I'm a foreigner and they're wanting to treat me differently? That's often the way you feel.
Well, I think the people I interact with, right, from the people I've seen that I don't really know that well and interact down to the people that, like my wife's parents and, my Chinese friends, I think, it goes, you're always going to be looked at by the people you initially meet as, you're a foreigner, right? Let's talk to the foreigner, let's interact with the foreigner. And after a while, you forget, or they forget, that you're not just another person. And that's when you truly can feel like you are at home, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but you're always going to meet someone for the first time on the street, right? You're always going to go past someone that's never seen you before. It's going to be like, hello, It doesn't really bother me. I don't, other people get bothered by it. It's just kind of a way of life here.
It's just something you have to accept. It's the way it is here, and you can't change it. That's the way it is.
Exactly.
So, I mean, for example, I mean, living here 9 years, I mean, thinking outside of Xi'an and in reference to China as a nation, what would you say has been the biggest change since you first arrived?
For China as a whole, I'm not a China expert.
Yeah,
I know
no,
Xi'an
but-
a little bit, but I'd say if Xi'an is a reference to the greater part of China,
Yes.
I'd say life is getting much faster. Right? I mean, life is much more money focused now. Right? It's much more focused on the size of your car and the largest of your bank account, and and where did you have dinner last night? Where when I was here 9 years ago, I lived in the city center, in a very small street in the city center, and it wasn't something that people talked about a lot. They wanted people would stop and have a conversation with you on the side of the road, maybe for 10 minutes, maybe for 20 minutes, right? They'd invite you in for a cup of tea, just because they wanted to know who you were, right? Again, this might be because I was a foreigner, right? It's not like every Chinese person is inviting other Chinese people into their house, but now it's much more, rapid.
Yes.
It's much more focused on how can you help me? What can you do for me?
Ah.
That's it's much.
So you think it's more about having a relationship, a friend who can not just be a friend who you can confide in if you've got problems, but also you think people are more focused on, right, how can you help me move on in life?
I think so. It seems to be that way. I mean, maybe that is where a problem where a lot of foreign people that come to Xi'an have a difficulty getting into the actual life here, because as foreigners, we can't. I mean, besides teaching kids Chinese, either English, what can you help? How can you help your neighbors really? Right? And so you're always going to be kept at an arm's distance, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? And as that, as life gets faster and faster, and money becomes more and more of the focus, well, then that unity, that interrelatedness will kind of fade away, maybe. Unfortunately.
So you were talking about it's becoming more money focused recently. Now, I think the one question that drives nearly everyone in the foreign community crazy is, in 1 month, how much money do you earn? Do you think, that question has now, do you think people are now beginning to ask that more frequent compared to 8 years ago or something like that?
No, and that's an interesting thing. I think they're asking it less because 8 years ago it didn't matter. Money wasn't their concern so much 8-9 years ago, right? So one of the first 3 questions you get: how much do you weigh? How much money do you make a month? And are you married? Right? Always the first 3 questions, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't get this question anymore. Right? People don't say how much do you make anymore, because I think they are so money focused. They're starting to get more to realize exactly. They put money as more of a value of a person now. And so if you tell me you make 3,000 RMB a month, well then, but I thought you were better than that, right? Or you tell me you make 60,000 RMB a month, I'm like, well now I feel inferior. So like in the U.S., like to this day, I don't know how much my father makes a month. I don't know. It's none of my business.
Would you be interested though?
No, I really wouldn't care. I think when I was a child, I asked him, and I think he told me it was none of my business. And I guess it really doesn't matter to me, right? But what I'm trying to say is that 8 years ago, people asked it all the time, and now never gets asked. I haven't been asked in maybe 2 years.
I mean, I think in reference to our parents, we ask things like, if we're on the phone, we'll ask, is everything okay? You okay for money? And if they weren't, then we would just instantly transfer some money to them.
Exactly.
We care more about on the level of, are you okay with money? Are you stable right now? Do you have enough money? Is everything okay? But we wouldn't generally ask, how much do you earn?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. Yeah. Hey, Mom, what's your bank account look like today? That would be really weird. Yeah.
So, I mean, you started Xianease magazine that very recently had their 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, 5 years.
I mean, Xianease magazine, it's now really a reference point, not only for the foreign community in Xi'an, but it's also now branching out to local Xi'an residents who want to know what's going on in the local area. Now, initially, what was your motivation for starting the magazine?
Well, I mean, the magazine started because I was working at a hotel here called the Hyatt. Right, Hyatt is now.
Oh, the Hyatt.
Yeah, it's gone now. It was on Dongdajie,
Oh.
and I was the marketing communications manager, Marcom manager.
Yeah.
Now, I was one of the few foreign guys on staff. And what everyone in the hotel thought my job is that if a foreigner came to any Chinese person and asked any question at any time, I had to go answer it, right? So, like, what time is breakfast served? hold on. And they'd go get me. And I'm like, you couldn't tell them. You speak English, you know. Anyway. And so finally I got them to realize that, look, you can't do that. But they kept bothering me with these, you know, and over the course of a week I have my own work to do. But they keep asking me, you know, how do I get to the Terracotta Warriors? Where can I have noodles? You know, how do I get to the Muslim Quarter? And so what I did is I started this website with just like 20 questions. It was a very basic website. 20 questions, you know, boom, 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 boom. How do I get to the Muslim Quarter? How do I get to the Terracotta Warriors? And it was just a website, right? Because that was the impetus of Xianease. And then from there, I was contacted by my business partner. Then he wanted to know if we wanted to make a magazine out of it. And so we had to shift the focus a bit, right?
Yes.
And so when we started, the whole motivation was that Xi'an is actually a really cool place to live. It really is. I'm not saying it because I have a magazine. I'm not saying it because I have something to sell. What I'm saying is that if you can get into your own Xi'an, right, the places you go, right, the places you go eat your noodles, your jiaozi, your dumplings, your anything, right, your kao rou is different than mine, right? And up until recently, there really wasn't a foreign center that's all the foreigners went to. And so everyone's Xi'an, there was 1 million Xi'ans in the city. And so I wanted to bring all that out, which is why the magazine is called it's called Xianease, and our tagline is Discover Your Xi'an. Right? And initially, like you said, it was geared towards foreigners, right? Because I'm a foreign guy, right? And so, but what we found out over the last 5 years is that there are actually Chinese folks that are overseas studying, come back to Xi'an, and they want to get a Western idea. They want to start seeing exactly what do foreigners in Xi'an do, or where can I get a bit of a Western idea, and that's where we're at now.
Okay, right. So when it comes to your magazine, do you feel there's any strong criteria that needs to be reached before someone has an article published in your magazine?
No, I mean there are different levels, right? I mean we're not Time magazine. We're not anything of any great consequence. I mean let's be honest with the magazine. It's 56 pages. It's nothing. But what I do want to do is maintain a positive outlook on things, right? Xi'an is a great place to live. Xi'an can really be crap. It can really be difficult. It's not Shanghai, right? It's not Hong Kong. You know, we've all had those Xi'an days, China days, where everything goes wrong. And if I start focusing on, like in our restaurant reviews, right? I start putting in negative reviews in the restaurants. Well, if I'm going to start saying where not to go in Xi'an, my magazine's going to come out every week and it's going to be that thick. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing, is that I want to make sure that we always put I not lie, but I always want to have let's talk about the positives of living here. That's about the only criteria. Okay.
So in reference to having your magazine published in China, are there any rules which you need to follow in as far as censorship, that kind of thing?
There is. They want us to stay away from religion, to stay away from politics, to stay away from sexually oriented material, and to stay away from being too negative about things in general. Now, this is kind of a slippery slope, right? Because none of these things, because we're not a Chinese language periodical, they don't give us memos, right? Not like the newspapers out here give memos to say you can write this, you can't write that. So what starts happening is you start self-censoring, and that's not necessarily a good thing, right? I mean, I'm never going to have an article about free Tibet or Taiwan is its own country. That's never going to appear in the magazine. But when pollution is such a bad thing, and then someone writes an article about how they wanted to go out for a run, but the pollution was bad, so they found a great gym to go to. I start finding myself with a red pen saying, well, let's not talk about the pollution. And then, well, no one is actually telling me, Patrick, don't say that. I find that I'm doing it myself, and so I kind of have to stop that, right? I think for maybe people that are watching this or people that have not been to China, it's much less heavy-handed than you think. Much, much less. I mean, it's not like we don't have to turn in the magazine every month to some censor, and then they mark it up with a red pen and give it back. It's nothing like that. No.
But does someone actually read your magazine from time to time?
It's from time to time, yes. And they look. Well, do they read it? I have no idea. Do we have to give our issues to them? Yes.
Okay, but you're not sure if they read them.
I have no idea. No idea.
I mean, this one might be a bit of a complex question, and we could talk about it all day, but what would you say the biggest differences when you do business with people in China as opposed to doing business with people from the West? Can you actually elaborate on that topic at all?
Sure. I mean, because we have some clients are Western clients, right, for the ads, and some are most are Chinese. And Western clients, if you're a Western client, let's say we're going to put your information series as an ad. We're going to meet, we're going to sit down, we'll be very cordial to each other, we're going to talk about the ad, and then we're going to go from there, right? We're going to say, all right, great, nice to meet you, I'll send you the information by email, done. Where when you sit down with Chinese folks, they're like, so, where are you from? Tell me about who you are. Tell me what's going on. Tell me about your family. What do you do in Xi'an? Do you like to eat Chinese food? And at first, you're like, what are we talking about? Let's talk about this ad. Like, yeah, we'll talk about the ad later. Let's be friends first.
That one, yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, and it's actually quite a good thing, but it does take some getting used to. When you're talking about an ad that is 3,000 RMB a month, it's nothing really, and I'm on my 5th meeting with this guy. I'm just like, man, just the ad or no ad. At this point, come on. I don't. Oh, look, there's your kids, nice kids, right? I mean,
it's much more. Do you find it's much more drawn out?
It's much more relationship based.
Yes.
Much more relationship based, right? I mean, they want to know who you are. They want to know what you do here. They want to know about you, and then, later on, you'll get something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So while we're on the topic of relationship, now running a magazine and obviously having to carry out business in China, could you elaborate and perhaps give examples on the importance of guanxi?
Yeah, it's a really good question actually, because when it comes down to guanxi, I think that guanxi for Chinese the Chinese and guanxi for Chinese the foreign, completely different, right? A Chinese person wants to do business, they use guanxi with another Chinese person, because that Chinese person can help them, give them business, right? And that's not something as foreigners we can do, right? Like what can we really do to help someone who's Xianease, or the people who live here? What can you and I really do, honestly? We can give them face at a party, we can give their kids English lessons, right? But there's not really much that we can actually do for them. And so that's why I think for a guanxi which happens between foreigner and Chinese, it is more actually about being friendly, being a nice guy, being someone who's there to talk to them, which gets, like I was just saying, gets kind of frustrating at times. But it's a really good question, and it's something that's taken me a long time, right? Because I know, right? I know people. I have people from the PSB on my phone, on Weixin, right? I have people from the government on my Weixin, right? I know these people. They see me. They know me by name. It'll never benefit the magazine. In fact, it probably more hurts the magazine than benefits the magazine. Well, because now they know me. They know who I am. They know what I do here, and they take an interest.
And they could start watching you. If
Exactly,
they need to.
right? So I think that's one of the largest incorrect ideas that foreigners have about doing business in China. Is guanxi for foreigners anyway.
I've actually there's a very good website which I read. It's called MiddleKingdomLife.com,
Alright.
and it's written by people, just different people. They submit articles, etc. And they were saying for a foreigner to build guanxi, it's extremely difficult compared to a Chinese person.
It has to be.
Yes.
Look, I'm about as low level of a business person as you could ever get, right? I mean, what you're doing right now is more innovative than what I do. But what guanxi could I ever possibly give somebody? What could I possibly benefit them?
Yes.
If you really look at it now. So, if I'm using guanxi, it's got to be personal, like friendship.
Yes.
Nothing to do with money.
So do you think because of that, a lot of foreigners may have problems kind of developing a friendship with a Chinese person?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. I mean, you're going to get a lot of people that want to be very topically. They want to be your friend, right? And they're going to invite you to parties. They're going to want to go out with you to the bar because they want to be seen with you, right?
Oh.
That's your guanxi. They really don't know you very well, and I mean, they don't want to know you very well. But that's the guanxi that if you're trying to get guanxi, that's what you have to do.
Yes, I understand. So obviously, with you first starting out in China, wanting to set up the magazine, etc., you would have probably have to have been introduced to different people in order to get the magazine started.
Yeah.
Now, however, since the magazine is now well established, has a large circulation, and there's many local people in that, a lot of local people are now using it. Do you find that people are actually wanting to be introduced to you nowadays, as opposed to the other way around?
Sometimes, yes, but my whole goal is for that not to happen, because I don't want, the magazine is not me, right? The magazine is not Patrick, right? Xianease is its own thing. I happen to be the guy running it at this point, but I'm not going to be here forever. And when I go, I don't want the magazine to go. I'd like to give it to somebody else. I'd like somebody else to take it over. So yes, there are some people that get the wrong idea of what I could possibly do for them or who I am. But yes, so they want to meet me. But after they meet me, they quickly find out that, well, that was kind of a waste of time. Because all I do is talk about the magazine, right? That's the point. That's
Would you say that you're just a face for the magazine?
Exactly. The face for right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that could change in the future.
And I hope it does. Isn't this? If you look at the magazine, it's almost kind of like my child in a way, right? In a weird kind of way. The whole goal is for the child to succeed the parent. The whole goal is for the child to stand up on its own. I don't want to always be the one holding up Xianease. I let go. Have someone else hold it for a while, or better yet, nobody holds it up. It does it on its own. That's the real goal.
Okay, I see. Now, you were formerly a member of the Xi'an Business Forum.
Yep.
Now, and obviously doing business yourself, what do you see as some of the biggest mistakes that foreigners would make when trying to start businesses here in China?
I think there's a few of them, actually. I think the one that I realize the most of anything is that a lot of foreigners think the Chinese government is the answer to everything. If you could just get government involvement, money, everything flows your way. And the two interactions we've had with the government, actual large-based interactions we've had with the government, with our magazine, have almost both of the times ended in disaster for us, right? They want to give us some money, so they're going to give us some money. We give them a basic view of how much we think the magazine is worth, right? Overall, they say, okay, we're going to give 30%. Okay, great. You give 30%, and then we build upon that. And they say, but we want editorial rights. We want this. We want this. Like, wait, then you're just buying the magazine for 30%, right? The other one was, again, it started. They wanted to start publishing my articles about. It started out with wanting to publish articles about different things around Xi'an, right? Okay, and then all of a sudden it was starting to get a little bit, a little bit newsy, a little bit, propaganda-like. And then we had to have a meeting of how I had to tell them, it doesn't work that way. I can't.
That's not what the magazine.
It's not what the magazine's
If that
for,
happens, then the magazine will just crash.
Exactly. And so both times have been pretty difficult. So I think that's one of the largest things is foreigners that come in to start a company here. They think what we need to do is get the government's attention, right? The second is the pace, right? It is, I don't know how to say it, very easy to start a company in Xi'an or in China. I suppose. Look, let me also say everything I'm talking about is just my own experience. I could be an idiot. I don't know Shanghai, Beijing. I don't know these things. I just know Xi'an, and so it's very easy to start an advertisement company in Xi'an and start with your first issue of the magazine. It's really not that difficult, and that gives you a diluted sense of the ease of growth. So you're 6 months in, and all of a sudden you think, why don't we just go to another city? Let's expand to this city. I mean, there's nothing. Let's do this, right? But what happens is that the larger you get, the more resistance or the more pushback you get. It's like an airflow or a ship, right? The smaller the surface area, the less friction. The larger you get, the more friction you get. In terms of people interacting with you, in terms of content, in terms of the way you're looked at, it's much different. Chinese folks, at least in Xi'an, are very happy to help you start something. But the minute you start to get too big, they're like, whoa, hold on now. If you can do this, Chinese people can do it better. Hold on. And then, if you're too spread out, and it all come crashing down.
Now, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in doing business here in China?
I guess one is don't come in here in 10 days and say, I'm going to start a business right now. I would say, come here, teach English, do something for a year. Get to know the lay of the land. One, right? That's very important. Two is don't use your stereotypical mind, don't use your stereotypical eye and say all Chinese people are this way or all that is that way, because that's the surest way to get your ass handed to you. And number three is to find a Chinese business partner. There are countless articles about how people have been screwed over. Hell, the guy who started the first expat magazine in China, in Shanghai, got screwed over because of his Chinese business partner. But if you spend some time here and you get to know somebody, it's so much easier. My business partner is not Chinese, by the way, but
is he Japanese?
Yeah, Japanese guy. Yeah. But in looking at how everything else is going, having a Chinese business partner would, as part of the team. I don't mean replace him with a Chinese person. I mean, it makes it so much smoother. So much smoother.
I understand. I've actually been told, I could be wrong on this. I've heard it through the grapevine that in order to set up a business in China, as a foreigner, you can't be the majority shareholder. You have to either go 50-50 with a Chinese person or go, maybe 49-51 with a Chinese person. Is that true?
You can establish a WOFE, a wholly owned foreign enterprise. But to do that, you need to have in the bank at all times, cannot touch it. The amount is millions of RMB, like 1 or 2 or 5 million RMB need to be in the bank at all times, right? And like us, our magazine is actually an advertisement company. Foreigners are not allowed to own advertisement companies, at least in Xi'an. Again, Shanghai might be different. It's a whole different municipality. But, so you can't do it, right? So that's a WOFE. Let's say 2 million RMB in the bank. It's millions, I know that. I don't know how much. But Chinese person wants to register a company, 250 kwai. There you go.
So, with your magazine, have you ever had any competition in the past with other magazines or anything like that?
There was. When we first started, there was another magazine called China Grooves.
I remember it, yes, when I first came here as a backpacker, there was another magazine called China Grooves.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I would love to, put my cape on and look over the ledge and say I'm a tycoon of business, but no, they put themselves out of business before anything. I mean, they I think had 4 issues. Our first 4 issues, they had 4 issues, and they were done. They were already gone. At the time.
Isn't the Grooves thing? Is that not a franchise? Because I remember my friend when I went to visit her in South Korea. There was a magazine called Seoul Grooves, and isn't there one called Beijing Grooves or something like that? Is this Grooves thing like a franchise or something?
That I don't know. I don't know about Korea. I know that at one point they started out, they had one. In fact, when I'm talking about people that are growing too fast, too quickly, that's the example I'm using. Because they had one in Xi'an. This is how quick it was, right? They called themselves China Grooves, right? They built one in Xi'an, and then all of a sudden they decided they want to build one in Chengdu. And then they had Chengdu Grooves. And then they had another one. I forgot where. The Chongqing Grooves. Well, they did all of this. And all of a sudden, the government said, hey, you cannot have the word China in your name unless you're a government-owned company. So they had to go from China Grooves to C Grooves, right? So they did not do any of their homework. And if they just remained in Xi'an as China Grooves, they probably would have never been even noticed.
Yeah.
Right? But because they tried to grow too quick, too fast, and then their franchise owner in Chongqing, in Chengdu, then screwed them over and made his own magazine, right? And so they had troubles from the beginning.
I think that's what it was. It wasn't Beijing Grooves. I think it was Chengdu Grooves. Yeah. That's the one I'm talking about.
But they had such a, the owner, the former owner of the magazine is a friend of mine. He's a really nice guy. He's from the UK. He's now in Germany he's an engineer. Right? He's a really good guy, really smart guy. He just happened to hire the wrong people. Right? It was not Xianease that put him out of business. Nah, we couldn't do that.
Right, so that's it really, Patrick. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that. It was very informative. I'm sure it'll help a lot of people.
Well, I don't know. If you need any more information, you can send them my way, or whatever. I don't mind.
Yeah, no,
like I said, I'm not a business guy, but
you have some knowledge and experience in that area, and
a little bit.
Okay, well, it's better than nothing. It's better than me talking about it inside there.
Yeah, you have a better accent though.
Oh yeah, right. I sound like a hick from the north of England. Right, so thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you.
Take care.